I was standing in the kitchen of our Vancouver home, watching rain slide down the window pane, when my 8-year-old grandson Ethan tugged gently at my sweater. The way he looked up at me made something tighten in my chest. "Grandpa," he said softly, almost whispering, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, buddy. What's going on?" He glanced toward the hallway and then back at me. "Why does Grandma always make me take those vitamins when you're not here?" My blood turned to ice. "What vitamins?" "The ones in the brown bottle. She says they'll make me strong like you used to be." He hesitated. "But Grandpa, they make me really sleepy, and sometimes my stomach hurts." I crouched down so we were eye to eye, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "Ethan, can you show me those vitamins?" He nodded and led me upstairs to the bathroom. From behind a stack of folded towels in the linen closet, he pulled out an amber prescription bottle. The moment I read the label, the room seemed to sway. Zolpidem 10 mg prescribed to Helen Brooks, my wife of 42 years. The prescription date was 3 months old. "How often does Grandma give you these?" I asked, fighting the shake in my voice. "Every day after school. She says it's our secret and not to tell you because you worry too much." His eyes welled with tears. "Am I in trouble?" "No, buddy. You did the right thing telling me." I pulled him into a hug while my thoughts spiraled. "Go watch some TV for a little while, okay? I need to make a phone call." After he left, I stood there holding that bottle, my hands trembling. Helen and I had been caring for Ethan for 6 months since our daughter Laura Brooks died in a car accident. Her husband, Ethan's father, was deployed overseas with the Canadian Forces, and we had stepped in rather than see Ethan placed in temporary foster care. But sleeping pills for an 8-year-old? I grabbed my phone and called our family physician, Dr. Alan Matthews. When the receptionist said he was with a patient, I didn't hesitate. "Tell him it's Thomas Brooks. It's about my grandson. It's urgent." 3 minutes later, Dr. Matthews was on the line. I explained everything, reading the prescription details aloud. The silence that followed felt endless. "Thomas," he said at last, his voice tight, "bring Ethan in immediately. I'm clearing my schedule. And bring the bottle." "Is it that serious?" Zolpidem is a powerful sedative hypnotic. It's prescribed for severe insomnia in adults. In children, it can cause respiratory suppression, cognitive issues, even permanent neurological damage. "How long has this been happening?" He said every day. "I don't know for how long." "Stay calm, but yes, this is very serious. I'll see you in 20 minutes." I hung up and found Helen in her craft room working on a quilt. At 73, she still carried the energy of someone decades younger, or so I had believed. "Helen, we need to talk." She looked up and smiled, the same smile I'd loved for over 4 decades. "What is it, dear?" I held up the bottle. "Why are you giving your sleeping pills to Ethan?" The color drained from her face. "Thomas, I can explain." "Explain? You've been drugging our grandson." "I haven't been drugging him. He has so much energy. And I'm not as young as I used to be. The pills help him settle down after school so I can rest. Just a little. Half a pill, that's all." Half a pill of medication meant for adults. "Helen, do you understand what you've done?" "Don't be so dramatic. My mother used to give us some of her nerve medicine when we were too rowdy. It never hurt us." I stared at the woman I'd shared my life with and felt like I didn't know her. "Get your coat. We're taking Ethan to Dr. Matthews." "Now." "That's completely unnecessary." "Now, Helen." The drive to Dr. Matthews' office was silent, except for Ethan's cheerful chatter in the back seat. He was thrilled to miss school, unaware of how serious this was. Helen stared out the window, jaw tight. Dr. Matthews examined Ethan carefully, asking about memory, sleep patterns, nightmares. Then he ordered blood work. "I'm running a full toxicology panel," he told me in the hallway while a nurse stayed with Ethan. "And I need to speak with both of you separately." An hour later, he called me into his office. His expression was grim. "Thomas, I am legally required to report this to Child Protective Services." The words hit like a punch. "What does that mean for Ethan?" "There will be an investigation. He can remain in your care, but Helen cannot be alone with him unsupervised. I'm also referring him for a full neurological evaluation to determine whether there's lasting damage." "Lasting damage?" My voice broke. Zolpidem can interfere with developing neural pathways, memory formation, cognitive processing, emotional regulation. The sleepiness and stomach pain suggest consistent dosing. If this has gone on for weeks or months, he paused. We won't know the extent until testing is complete. I thought about Ethan's recent struggles in school, how his teacher mentioned he seemed distracted, how his grades had slipped. I had blamed it on grief over losing his mother. There's something else, Dr. Matthews added. During the exam, Ethan mentioned sometimes he can't remember entire afternoons. That's memory loss in an 8-year-old. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. That evening, after Ethan was asleep, I confronted Helen again. She was defensive. I was doing what needed to be done. You're gone 3 days a week volunteering at the Legion. You don't see how exhausting it is. He's always running, making noise, demanding attention. I'm 73, Thomas. I needed help. So you poisoned him? I didn't poison anyone. It was just something to calm him down. Better than him running wild. Helen, he's 8. He lost his mother 6 months ago. Of course he has energy. Of course he needs attention. That's what children do. I couldn't give that every single day. I needed rest. Then you should have told me. We could have hired help, arranged daycare, anything but this. She stood, face flushed. So, now I'm the villain? I've taken care of this family for 42 years. I raised our daughter. I kept this house going while you worked 60-hour weeks. And now I'm a criminal because I needed help? You secretly medicated a child, Helen, our grandson, Laura's son. Tears burned in my eyes. How could you do this to him? To her memory? For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Guilt, maybe, but it hardened again. You're overreacting. He's fine. Dr. Matthews said there could be permanent brain damage. That shattered her composure. She sank into her chair, hands shaking. What? The medication affects brain development in children. He's been losing hours of his life. She covered her face. I didn't know. I thought it would just make him sleepy, like an allergy pill. This isn't an allergy pill. It's a controlled substance. I drew a steadying breath. Child Protective Services is opening an investigation. A social worker will be coming here. Ethan needs specialist evaluations. And you? The next words felt like ash. You cannot be alone with him anymore. You can't be serious. I am completely serious. Until this is resolved and we know the full impact, I will not risk his safety. He's my grandson, too. Then you should have remembered that before you started giving him medication in secret. The silence that followed was broken only by Helen's quiet sobs. I wanted to comfort her the way I had for 42 years. But every time I thought about Ethan's confused little expression, about the bottle hidden in the closet, about the methodical way she had been giving it to him day after day, I felt frozen. The following weeks were a nightmare. The social worker, a compassionate yet meticulous woman named Olivia Park, interviewed everyone. Me, Helen, Ethan's teachers, even our neighbors. Ethan went through a long series of evaluations: neurological, psychological, and cognitive. His teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, told us she had noticed clear changes over the past few months. He used to be one of my sharpest students, she explained, but lately he struggles to concentrate. He forgets simple instructions. Sometimes he even seems unsure about what day it is. The neurologist, Dr. Maya Kapoor, later called me in to review the findings. The positive news is that we haven't detected any permanent structural brain damage, she said carefully. However, his cognitive testing shows concerning trends. His short-term memory scores are significantly below what we'd expect for his age, and his processing speed is slower than normal. These effects could improve as the medication leaves his system and as his brain continues developing. She paused before continuing. But we won't know the full outcome for several months, possibly even years. Years. The word felt suffocating. A developing brain is resilient, she added, but it is also extremely vulnerable. Repeated exposure to sedative medications during critical developmental stages can have lingering consequences. We'll need to monitor Ethan closely. He may require cognitive therapy, academic support, and possibly treatment in the future to help with attention and memory. I thought about my daughter Laura, about how proud she'd been when Ethan first learned to read, how excited she was when he memorized his multiplication tables. She had dreamed so much for her son, And now, because of Helen's decisions, those dreams might be permanently altered. At home, the atmosphere became unbearable. Helen and I barely spoke. She moved into the guest room. Whenever Ethan was home from school, I made sure I was present. On the days I had to work my part-time shifts at the hardware store, my friend George Miller from the Legion stayed at the house so Ethan would never be alone with her. Helen tried several times to talk, to explain, but I couldn't listen. Every time I looked at her, I saw that prescription bottle. I saw Ethan's confused eyes. I heard Dr. Kapoor's warning about lasting effects. The breaking point came 3 weeks into the investigation. I was in the garage organizing tools when I heard raised voices from inside the house. I rushed in and found Helen in the kitchen, trying to speak to Ethan. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she was saying through tears. "I never meant to hurt you, sweetheart. I was exhausted, and I made a terrible mistake." "What is going on here?" I demanded. Ethan looked frightened. "Grandma was trying to hug me," he said quietly. "But you said I shouldn't be alone with her." "I wasn't doing anything wrong," Helen protested. "He's my grandson. I have the right to explain myself." "You lost that right," I replied, my hands shaking with anger. "You gave him medication in secret day after day. He's 8 years old, Helen. He doesn't need your justifications. He needs to feel safe." "I never made him unsafe. His memory is affected. He's forgetting entire afternoons of his life. He's struggling in school. How is that safe?" Ethan began to cry, and I immediately knelt beside him. "Hey, buddy, it's okay. Why don't you go watch some cartoons for a bit? Grandpa needs to talk to Grandma." Once he left the room, I turned back to Helen. "You need to leave." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Pack a bag and stay somewhere else. With your sister, at a hotel, I don't care. But you cannot stay here right now. You're throwing me out of my own home? I am protecting our grandson, the one thing you should have been doing from the beginning." She stared at me for a long moment, then quietly walked upstairs. I could hear drawers opening and closing, the muffled sound of a suitcase being packed. About 20 minutes later, she came down with her luggage. At the door, she paused and looked back at me. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I truly am. I didn't understand how serious it was. I was overwhelmed and made a terrible decision. But Thomas, I love that boy. I would never intentionally harm him." "But you did harm him," I replied. "Intentionally or not, the damage was done." She nodded slowly, tears running down her cheeks, and walked out. That night, Ethan and I sat alone at the dinner table for the first time since everything had started. "Is Grandma coming back?" he asked quietly. "I don't know, buddy. We have some things we need to figure out first." "Did I do something wrong? Is she mad at me?" "No, Ethan. This is not your fault. You did nothing wrong. In fact, you did exactly the right thing. You told me the truth when something didn't feel right. That was very brave." He looked down at his plate. "Everything feels strange now." I reached across the table and gently held his small hand. "I know it does, and I'm sorry. But I want you to remember something important. When someone you love does something that hurts you, even if they didn't mean to, it's important to speak up. It's important to tell someone who can help. And that's exactly what you did." "But Grandma looked really sad." "She is sad," I said softly. "And she should be, because she made a choice that hurt you, and now she has to face the consequences of that choice. That's how life works. Our actions always have consequences." Over the following months, things slowly began to stabilize. The CPS investigation concluded that while Helen's actions were dangerous and potentially criminal, authorities chose not to pursue charges due to her age, the absence of prior incidents, and the lack of clear malicious intent. However, strict recommendations were made that she should never have unsupervised access to Ethan. Helen moved in with her sister in Surrey. She called every few days, asking about him, asking if she could visit. I allowed supervised phone calls, and over time, very cautiously, I permitted short visits in public places, restaurants, parks, always with me present. Ethan's cognitive condition improved gradually. After 3 months, his teacher reported that his concentration was noticeably better. After 6 months, Ethan's test scores had returned to the average range. Dr. Maya Kapoor remained cautiously hopeful that he would make a full recovery. though she reminded me that true certainty would only come as he grew older. For me, the most difficult part was reconciling the woman I had loved for 42 years with the person capable of doing what she had done. Helen and I began attending counseling together. She admitted that she had been battling depression since Laura's death, that caring for an energetic 8-year-old had felt overwhelming, and that she had convinced herself the sleeping pills were harmless. I kept telling myself it was like the cough syrup with codeine my mother used to give us, she confessed during one session. I knew deep down it wasn't the same, but I avoided thinking about it too much, because if I truly admitted what I was doing, I'd have to face that I was hurting him. The therapist gently finished the thought, and Helen nodded through tears. I told myself I was helping, she whispered, that a calm, rested Ethan was better than an exhausted, overwhelmed grandmother. I refused to see the truth. The therapist then turned to me. Thomas, what do you need from Helen in order to move forward? I sat with that question for a long time. I need to know that you fully understand the gravity of what you did, I finally said. Not just that you made a mistake, but that you repeatedly gave medication to a child for months, hid it from me, and placed your comfort above his safety and development. I need to know you truly grasp that. Helen met my gaze, her eyes filled with regret. I do. I truly do. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right for both of you. It has now been 2 years. Ethan is 10 years old, doing well in school, playing hockey, and taking piano lessons. Dr. Kapoor says his cognitive abilities are now normal for his age. He still has some memory gaps from that period. Entire weeks he simply cannot recall, but overall he is a healthy and happy child. Helen lives in a small apartment downtown now. She sees Ethan twice a week through supervised visits that have slowly become more relaxed over time. Last month, for the first time, I allowed her to take him to the park on her own. She had been terrified I would refuse, and deeply grateful when I agreed. Our marriage will never return to what it once was. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been damaged. We are trying to build a different kind of relationship now, one grounded in honesty, accountability, and firm boundaries. Whether that path eventually leads to reconciliation or to a permanent separation, I cannot say. What I do know is this. I failed my grandson by not recognizing the warning signs sooner. Ethan had grown quieter, more withdrawn, struggling at school, and I had blamed it all on grief. I should have paid closer attention. I should have asked more questions. But I also know that once I discovered the truth, I acted immediately. I placed Ethan's safety above my marriage, above my comfort, above everything else. And that is what every caregiver, parent, and guardian must be prepared to do. Trust your instincts. If something feels off with a child in your care, if their behavior changes, if they seem unusually tired or confused, if they mention things that don't make sense, look into it. Do not assume. Do not justify. Do not put adult convenience ahead of a child's well-being. And if you are a caregiver who is struggling, overwhelmed, or finding it difficult to cope, reach out for help. Ask for support. Speak with family, friends, doctors, or counselors. Hire assistance if needed. There are always resources available. What should never happen is placing a child at risk because of pride, exhaustion, or silence. Ethan's father returned from overseas last year. The three of us, Helen, Ethan's father, and I, sat down together, and I told him everything. It was the hardest conversation I have ever had. He was furious, heartbroken, and eventually understanding. He knows Helen loves Ethan. He also understands that what she did was unacceptable. He is now stationed in Edmonton, and next summer Ethan will be moving there to live with him permanently. I will miss Ethan more than I can put into words, but I know this is the right decision. He needs to be with his father, to strengthen that bond, and to begin again somewhere that isn't overshadowed by what happened here. Before he leaves, though, I am making sure he carries one truth with him. None of this was his fault, not even a fraction of it. He was the victim, and he showed incredible courage by speaking up. That is the lesson I want him to take into adulthood, that his voice matters, that his feelings matter, and that when something feels wrong, he doesn't just have the right to speak up, he has the responsibility to do so. Sometimes I think about Laura and what she would say about all of this. I choose to believe she would be proud that I protected her son, even though it meant standing against the woman I had loved for over 4 decades. I want to believe she would understand that loving someone does not mean shielding them from the consequences of their actions. It means holding them accountable. It means demanding better. It means creating boundaries that protect the vulnerable. Helen made a devastating decision. She placed her own comfort ahead of a child's well-being. She concealed it, justified it, and only stopped when the truth surfaced. Those facts cannot be softened or rewritten. But there is another truth as well. People are capable of change. They can confront their mistakes, examine the reasons behind them, and commit to becoming better than they were before. Helen has done that work. She is in therapy. She is receiving treatment for her depression. She has learned to ask for help instead of hiding her struggles. She is not the same woman who tucked that prescription bottle behind the towels. Is that enough? I honestly don't know. Some days I believe it is. Other days I'm not so sure. What I do know is that I will not pretend it never happened just to make things easier. Ethan deserves more than silence. Laura's memory deserves more than denial. And, in a way, Helen deserves more than being excused. She deserves the opportunity to confront the truth and grow from it. To anyone who may find themselves in a similar situation, whether you are the one uncovering harm or the one rationalizing behavior you know deep down is wrong, please act immediately. Do not wait for irreversible damage. Do not wait for authorities to intervene. Do not wait until a child's future is at risk. Children are resilient, but they are not indestructible. Their minds are still developing. Their identities are still forming. Their sense of trust in the world is still taking shape. Every decision we make as caregivers shapes that development. Every time we choose convenience over safety, comfort over attentiveness, pride over asking for help, we risk consequences that can last a lifetime. When I look at Ethan now, laughing with friends, excelling on his spelling tests, scoring goals on the hockey rink, I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude that we uncovered the truth when we did. Yes, there were consequences. Yes, he lost months of memories. Yes, he had to work harder to catch up academically. But he is okay. More than okay. And that is because I listened when he told me something felt wrong. Because I acted without hesitation. Because I refused to downplay or excuse what had happened. Sometimes, that is what love truly looks like. It is not comfort. It is not convenience. It is not avoiding difficult conversations to preserve peace. Real love means protecting the vulnerable, even when it costs you deeply, even when it costs you the person you have loved for 42 years. I hope I never face a choice like that again. But if I ever do, I already know what I will choose, every single time. The children must come first.